Our nations will update and enhance our shared ability to take on the threats of the 21st century, just as we did in the 20th century, together.
President Biden announcing a new defense agreement with the UK and Australia, focusing on the Indo-Pacific region. Let's bring in NBC News White House correspondent Monica Alba. Monica, the president joining British Prime Minister Boris Johnson, Australian PM Scott Morrison virtually for this announcement. How will this new partnership work?
You have to imagine, Allison, that if it weren't for the pandemic that we are all still in, that this event would have taken place with a lot more fanfare in person, perhaps next week in New York City when the UN General Assembly kicks off. But instead, it did take place virtually. And this trilateral initiative is something essentially that is for the Biden administration a big priority, which is countering the power of China. Though they didn't explicitly spell that out, they sort of talked around it in terms of the Indo-Pacific security. But this, which is going to be known as, say it with me, AUKUS, which is Australia, the UK, and the US, but in a lot of the different pronunciations, even President Biden mocked it a little bit, saying you spend hours coming up with these acronyms, and here we are. This one is AUKUS. But AUKUS is going to have its first initiative, which is essentially to deliver a nuclear-powered submarine fleet to Australia. And that's an initiative they're going to work on over the next 18 months. So already some deliverables about what these three nations want to do together. But here's a bit more from President Biden about why they felt the need was urgent at this particular moment.
This is about investing in our greatest source of strength, our alliances, and updating them to better meet the threats of today and tomorrow. It's about connecting America's existing allies and partners in new ways and amplifying our ability to collaborate, recognizing there is no regional divide separating the interests of our Atlantic and Pacific partners.
So this is really about nuclear defense infrastructure, and there was already an agreement between the U.S. and the UK when it came to some of these concerns. So folding in Australia just shows what a commitment it is and why they wanted to do this now in terms of potential concerns from China and from the entire Indo-Pacific region as being a potential area where there could be conflict, Allison.
Monica, I just played around some of the different combinations in my head, and as odd as it is, I think AUKUS might have been the best one. So maybe they were onto something there. And it certainly is one we won't forget. I do have to ask you, senior administration officials are saying this new deal is not aimed at China or any one country in particular. I know President Biden spoke with China's president on the phone last week. Did it come up at all in that conversation? Do we know? And how will today's announcement affect our relationship with China?
And the White House is very careful not to frame it in this way in particular. And in fact, I was just in the East Room with the president, and among our shouted questions to him once he wrapped his remarks was to detail, is this all about China? How would you categorize and characterize what this means for that nation? And he ignored all shouted questions, instead walking out of the room and really letting the announcement speak for itself. So the White House, again, doesn't want to say that this is necessarily what it's about, but undoubtedly, geopolitically, that is the implication. As far as that conversation with President Xi, the White House, again, saying they spoke about these topics more broadly, not necessarily the specifics of this particular national security initiative, Allison.
Thanks for watching our YouTube channel. Follow today's top stories and breaking news by downloading the NBC News app.